Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending Live Out Loud featuring Angie Bastian, brought to you by the Richard R. and Mary L. Schmitz Endowment for Opportunities in Food Entrepreneurship. My name is Dustin Cedars. I'm the Development Director for the College of Business. We've got a great event planned for you guys today. To start with, I'd like to thank Richard and Mary Schmitz for their amazing support for this lecture. Richard is a 1964 graduate from MSU with a degree in accounting. In 1973, Richard purchased his first retail store in Olivia, Minnesota, followed by one in Hudson, Wisconsin in 1981. He would go on to own multiple stores in Duluth, Minnesota, as well as in Wisconsin. In 2003, he sold his stores and retired from business. Richard has supported Minnesota State University in many roles, including being the president of the foundation board, and in 2002, he was named a distinguished alumni, receiving the Harold J. Fitterer Service Award. In 1999, he and his wife Mary started the Richard R. and Mary L. Schmitz Endowment for Opportunities in Food Entrepreneurship. This fund creates scholarships and supports an annual lecture like this by industry experts in the category of food entrepreneurship. This includes executives within a broad range of the food processing, retailing, and wholesaling industries. This event, along with additions like the new class offered this spring, Business in the Modern Ag Economy, and the College of Business Agribusiness Club, are just many of the latest efforts to education on agriculture and food in the College of Business. Although Mary was unable to attend today, Dick is in attendance. I'd like to ask Dick to stand so we can all show our gratitude. All right, so to explain a little bit of how the event's going to go today, our featured guest is going to do a presentation to start, and then we're going to have a conversation with her and Dean Flannery from the College of Business, and then I'll be followed by a question and answer session. So I'd like to introduce Professor Flannery. Dr. Brenda Flannery is Dean and Professor of Management for the College of Business at Minnesota State University, Mankato. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Marketing and MBA degrees from Western Illinois University and a PhD in Business Administration from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Dean Flannery has been at Minnesota State University, Mankato since 1996, serving in numerous roles and leadership positions, including Assistant Vice President for Undergraduate Studies and International Education, Associate Professor of Management, and Assistant Professor of Management. She has held the Dean position for the College of Business since 2011. Please join me in welcoming Dean Flannery. Now to introduce our guest speaker. Angie Bastian is the entrepreneur, co-founder, and namesake of Angie's Boom Chicka Pop. Angie took a kernel of an idea and popped it into one of the fastest growing brands of natural popcorn. She and her husband, Dan, founded their snack company in their Mankato, Minnesota garage in 2001 as a means of creating a college fund for their children. Dan is in attendance today as well, so we'd like to welcome Dan and ask him to stand. Angie and Dan's gluten-free, non-GMO, whole-grain popcorn is proudly sold in natural food, grocery, club, and mass retail outlets nationwide with a product presence in Canada, South Korea, Peru, Japan, the Caribbean, and Mexico. The company is constantly innovating and is one of the fastest growing and most successful popcorn brands in the market today. Angie's Boom Chicka Pop is loved by fans as an empowered, spirited brand that represents authentic, real food that delivers on the attributes of clean, transparent labeling and a great taste experience. The company has twice won Star Tribune's top workplace honors. Angie herself is a recipient of the 2015 ACG Bold Award for Corporate Growth and Connect Business Magazine's 2012 Person of the Year. Girl Scouts honored her as a pioneering trailblazer, and she is a 2015 inductee to the Minnesota Women's Business Owners Hall of Fame. She has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, quoted in Forbes magazine, and appeared on the Martha Stewart Show. Her products have been recognized and awarded by numerous national publications and media. Please join me in welcoming Angie Bastian.
Thank you. Thank you, Bastian. Appreciate it. All right. I was behind the curtain, so I don't see, where is Dan sitting?
Right here.
Good, okay, good. All right, hi, I'm Angie Bastian, and I am the co-founder of Angie's Boom Chicka Pop. And I want today to tell you quickly the story of our business, the journey that Dan and I took, and how we started out, and how we became Angie's Boom Chicka Pop. And I don't know if you were watching our little Vespa parade. That is a long way from our West Mankato garage. But believe me, we are so proud of what we did there. And that was even 3 or 4 years ago at Expo West in Anaheim, California, at the largest natural and organic food show in the country. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of the things we learned along the way. But first, why? Why start a popcorn company? Well, here's why. Here's why we started. Here's the why. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I was in nursing for 28 years. My husband Dan was a high school history teacher and a baseball coach. And he grew up in Mankato, and we just moved back here in 2001. And our children were 3 and 5 years old at the time. And we had one of those parent freak-out moments where we said, we haven't started a college fund yet for these kids. We got to do something. And so the obvious answer for us was to start a business, a part-time business, but nonetheless, that's what we decided to do. And one of the things we decided to think about is, how do we do this in a way that we can work together, we can do it with our children, we can teach them along the way the value and integrity of work, they can participate with us in this whole process, and they can work with us. So what we did is we talked about this for a couple of days after Dan went on the internet one night and discovered a website that said make thousands of dollars every weekend selling kettle corn. And he was like, that's it, that's what we're gonna do. And so we talked about it for about 3 days. We didn't have any money. We had 0% credit card solicitations in our mailbox, about 6 a week back in 2001. And we said, let's use one of these. And so we purchased, our first investment was about $10,000 on a 0% credit card, where we purchased our equipment, and we started the story of Angie's Kettle Corn. Now, this is the trajectories. 2001 to 2003, we're going to take it in little chunks. 2004 to 2011 was a place in the time of the company where it was incredible growth. And we're going to circle back, because 2001 to 2004 was hard. And we thought it was harder than anything we had done before, but just wait, it got harder. And this is what we looked like in the beginning, pretty primitive. This is what our little business looked like, our Angie's Kettle Corn Cafe. We didn't have a name for the company. We popped at MSU some events for basketball and some events for hockey. We popped where anybody would let us pop, in front of Rainbow Food, in front of Home Depot, any place anyone would let us pop. That's where we went. And our idea of bringing our children along to teach them how to work, I'm not exactly sure what we were thinking, because they were 3 and 5. And so at times we would drag them along and tuck them underneath the front table. And most of our tables had curtains in the front, and sometimes they would tuck them under there with books and Disney movies and pillows, and they'd take a nap and then they'd pop back up. And what we really wanted, and I really wanted as a mom, was for my children to learn how to look someone in the eye and to say thank you, and learn how to make change, and maybe learn how to work right alongside Dan and I. And this gave us an opportunity, but it didn't really work out all that well, and thank goodness for Grandma and Grandpa and a good babysitter. But this is what we did. We'd haul that trailer in the back, or we'd haul that kettle in the back of a trailer, and we'd take off to an event, and then we got an opportunity to to pop at Minnesota Vikings training camp in 2002 right here at MSU. And that opportunity was during training camp days. So morning and evening. And Dan and I were coming home from one of those days saying, we got to figure out a way to get somebody to notice us. And we thought, Dan is this huge Minnesota Vikings football fan all his life. And I had just moved to Minnesota, so I didn't really understand it quite yet. I do now. And I'm a Vikings fan as well. But back then, we just said, wouldn't it be fun if the players ate our popcorn? And so Dan made a few phone calls to somebody here that had a connection to a connection, and they got a hold of the Vikings, and we said, we'd like to give them some popcorn. We got a phone call back, and the Vikings said, well, we hear you want to give us some popcorn. We'll take it as long as it's free. So we gave them some popcorn. We spent the afternoon popping 120 bags, sent it off to the Vikings on a Sunday evening while they looked at tape. And the next morning, we got a lot of attention. We had trainers and coaches and some players that were saying, hey, can we get some more of this kettle corn? And oh, by the way, from the sales and marketing team, do you want to be the official kettle corn of the Minnesota Vikings? And Dan's question was, does it come with tickets? Because if it does, we're all in. But it was another $8,000 investment we didn't understand how sports sponsorships worked at that time, but we just knew that we wanted to be associated with a bigger organization and with the Vikings, and we just felt like it would make us, a more valid company in some way. And so we worked out a deal that allowed us to be able to pop in front of the Metrodome every home game. And you'll notice, like many kettle corn vendors at that time, the bag is completely labelless. It's clear, and it's not named, it's not anything. And that's how we went to market. So now, from 2001 to 2004, that's what we did, mobile food unit. But because we were in front of the Minnesota Vikings Metrodome, it gave us an opportunity and exposure to a much broader audience. And it eventually led to an opportunity to meet with the Lunds & Byerly's buyer in their office. And that buyer said, hey, I really like your product, we like to support local. We like products with clean ingredients. Do you want to sell in our store? But if you come in, you can't make it in your garage anymore. And so we said, okay, we get that. We need to do a lot of work, food labels and ingredient panels. We got a lot of work to do, and we have to find a commercial kitchen. Can you give us a little time? He said, okay, that's fine. I'll see you again. So that's when Dan quit teaching. We started out to do our research. We found a small commercial kitchen in North Mankato, very small, smaller than this space right here. We bought an indoor kettle. We fashioned a sifting table and a foot sealer, and we thought, well, okay, here we go. We're going to be in business. But that buyer said, you got to name it something. You got to name your product something. And we were like, well, we don't really know what popcorn is called. So what we did, and we're not marketers, right? And we didn't really understand branding, labeling, messaging. But what we understood is we had to come up with a name. So we went and did our research. We went to the grocery stores and we went online and we said, okay, what is popcorn called? At that time in 2004, popcorn was called Orville Redenbacher. It was called Vicks. It was called Cracker Jack. It was called a couple of places. It was called Fiddle Faddle, some adolescent kind of names. And online it was called Garrett's and Harry and David and Dale and Thomas. And I just said, where are the popcorn women? There are no popcorn women out here in the marketplace. And Dan goes, well, let's just name it your name. I like your name. Let's just call it Angie's. And so we were like, okay, fine, we'll call it Angie's. We called it Angie's, and that's how Angie's Kettle Corn came to be. And I think that what was really important about that point is we went to the context, and what we didn't understand at the time is that we were differentiating our brand in a way that set us apart on shelf, which became a continued theme throughout the course of our business. we believed ourselves to be a very serious company now, and we started rebranding, and I think our packaging sort of reflected how serious we thought our company was. During that time, between 2004 and 2010, we outgrew that small kitchen. During those years, we could make about 300 bags in about 5 hours, all done by hand. We couldn't keep up. We hired a couple of MSU students to help us pop. We hired a couple of retired teachers, at third grade teachers that just wanted to work together to help us do demos and deliver to backs of stores. We outgrew that space. We then moved into a space in Lower North Mankato, a building that we purchased. We started hiring a few more people to help us produce. We outgrew that space in about 16 to 18 months, and in 2007 we moved into our production facility on Upper North Mankato, the one that we have now, in about 20,000 square feet. We got Costco and started producing for Costco. We got a couple of other big accounts. We started working beyond Lunds and Byerly's, but we started with 3 Lunds and Byerly's stores and 1 food co-op. And from that, we grew into an upper Midwest distribution system. And for a time, Old Dutch distributed for us and helped kind of teach us a little bit about distribution. But then they decided they were done with us, and then we had to scramble and figure out where else could we find and learn about distribution and how to get our product onto shelf. And so as we grew, every step of the way, every sort of crisis turned into a learning moment for us. Every single mistake, and I call it fertilizer, turns into an opportunity to grow something. And I think that was also sort of a hallmark of how we went to business, or how we went to market, and how we learned and how we grew. During this time, we moved into our production facility. We started, and we started hiring. There was a time in 2010 where we had to make production. We hired 101 people in 60 days, and we had only had about 45 people on our payroll up until that point. So it was fast, it was furious, it was intense. And these are the days that I would say Dan would say he didn't sleep at all. He stopped playing golf. I didn't sleep much either. I was still working as a nurse part-time and trying to do the books, not very well, I might add. And we were grateful when his brother came back from Baltimore, who was a CPA, and he looked at us, and we both looked like we had, I don't know, just been turned upside down and shaken. He looked at us and he said, "What can I do for my brother?" And I said, "Well, you can come work for us. You're a CPA, right? We need you." And so Greg came on board, and he started running our finance department, and he helped us in ways, in leadership, and in ways that we would have never been able to do had we just kind of tried to strive out on ourselves and elbow our way through the finances of building a business. In the meantime, let me just say, in the end of 2010, Martha Stewart called. And let me tell you, we're a product here in Costco, and we're a product in the marketplace, but you never expect to have Martha Stewart call you, right? Like wow. What happened is that her producer, it was her producer that called, and she said, "I'm standing in front of a pallet at Costco, and I want to know, does your product have any gluten in it?" Nope, certified gluten-free. Does your product have any nuts? Does your plant have any nuts? Nope, we don't have any nuts in our plant. Do you have any artificial preservatives, any artificial ingredients? Nope, we don't. Okay, great, thank you, because my daughter is so food sensitive, I have to watch every single thing I put in her mouth. And I think the other hallmark that is a part of our company is just that. On that bag, even in Costco, our business phone number was still my husband's cell phone. So his cell phone number was on the back of every single one of those bags and on the side of our trucks, and people would call us and ask questions and make complaints, like, you don't have enough salt, and I still remember, we heard all of those complaints. We listened to consumers, and I will say that opportunity that we took to listen, to answer this consumer's question, I didn't know at the time that she was a producer for for Martha Stewart. She called back and said, hey, we're doing a gluten-free day, and Martha Stewart would like to have you on to teach her how to make kettle corn. Like, okay. We'll let you know if it happens, and it happened. And so this was in January of 2011. We were on the Martha Stewart show, and we thought, and somebody asked me when I thought we made the big time. That's when I thought we made the big time. But it didn't really change anything in sales, actually, because we were just beginning to build our company and our distribution. And I will tell you, it was so fast and so furious that I think what Dan and I looked at doing was just trying to contain an atmosphere and a culture of positivity internal to the business, create a family and a community where people felt like they wanted to come to work, that their values were represented in what we were doing, and that they were a part of something bigger than just selling popcorn. We were in service organizations, right? In professions. He was a teacher, I was a nurse, and suddenly we were consumed by selling popcorn. And we kind of looked at ourselves and said, where is the meaning in selling popcorn? And doing that every step of the way, it was really about how you run the business internally, how you see your employees as people first, employees second, allowing them to bring their whole self to work, creating an atmosphere where people can succeed and thrive, and creating a concrete reward for people bringing their best self to their career. And to connect to the community, to be the kind of company that is relevant in the community and relevant in people's lives. So, we didn't always have money to give, but when organizations would call us and ask us to participate and be a part of the community, we would bring popcorn if we didn't have the money, or we would find a way to figure out how to participate. We might have employees come and volunteer, or we might participate in whatever way we could at the time. And I think it was really important in that way, in that the community, and I think Dan would say this too, the community has given us so much that we felt a duty to give back to the community, and just as personally and as a business. So building that meaningful internal environment for us was building the soul of the company, the core of the company. And I would say companies and food brands that connect their persona, that brand persona, to the soul of their company are the companies that are congruent, they're genuine, and I think they're understood by the consumer and beloved by the consumer. And I'm not ashamed to say I wanted to be beloved by consumers. That was the point. I wanted our products to be somebody's choice, and I wanted the people that came to work for us that's their choice, that they wanted to come work for us, and that they wanted to be involved in a company that was somehow more important than just selling a product. So here we are. What next? 2011. We're a profitable company. We're growing in Mankato, and we weren't sure. Like, what do we do? What comes next? We knew that we wanted to grow more. We weren't sure how we were going to do it, and we knew we had a good cash flow at the time. We were doing well. We were a family-owned business, and then we just kept getting these inquiries from private equity and investment bankers and everybody like coming in, and we were like, what do they want? Like we were like, I don't know what they do. I don't have time to meet with them. Dan, we don't have time to talk to them. Like, we just didn't understand what private equity was about. But one of those private equity companies got through to us through a well-written letter that I would say took an educational approach. And Greg Bastian said, hey, he was our CFO, Dan's brother CFO at the time. He said, hey, we're doing fine, but you never know when you need more money to grow. And if we're going to grow, we're going to need more money. And now's a good time maybe to even consider that this is a way that investment can happen in the business. And so we met with private equity in 2011 and entered into a relationship with Sherbrooke Capital. And we entered into that relationship, they're out of Boston, in a minority position. They helped us form a board, they helped us create an employee equity pool for retention and for recruitment. They helped us build a sales team, they helped us teach us about distribution and about how to market our product. They helped us build the beginning of a marketing team in 2011, and they helped us with beginning consumer research and beginning sort of, I will say, the efficiency challenge in our production plant. We built a very small R&D facility in our second facility down in Belgrade, and it was just, I'm going to say, we were a motley crew of people that we put together an R&D team and started launching new products. And oh, by the way, when you do that, you can win prizes, and we won Food Processing Magazine's R&D Team of the Year in 2013, because what we did is we launched some snack products, decadent snack products, that also maintained the guardrails of our original no preservatives, no additives, no artificial anything, and it got the attention, and it got awarded. And then, okay, so now we've got some success. We've got this partnership with a private equity company that's helping us grow. We're humming along, and we're doing pretty well. But we're a kettle corn company at this point, and we wanted to really launch out into something a little bit bigger, a little bit more, because we felt like consumers didn't just see us as kettle corn, they saw us as popcorn, like a broader, and we needed to step outside of what we know and into maybe something bigger and broader. So we took a moment to take a step back and say, okay, what do we want to stand for as a company? So how do we connect the soul of the company to the persona of the company, that veneer that everybody sees, that everybody knows what we're about when they see us? And how do we do that? Like, how do you get to that? And we didn't have a marketing team, but two of us at the time. And Mary Hanrahan and I set out to say, okay, how do we do this? We went back to grocery stores and said, okay, that's what I know. Let's go back to the grocery stores and see what's going on in the natural and organic snack aisle. That's the context of where our product lives. Let's see what's going on, just like we did 6 years before. And what I noticed, this is what I noticed. In the natural and organic snack aisle, this is a very permissive aisle where there are snacks that are, you can say, chips. There are snacks that are meant for, very artisanal, and you'll get my point in just a second. The snack aisle in the natural and organic section was all about permissive snacks in a very, I'm going to say, very masculine and artisanal color palette and appeal. And their underlying message was, these are your snacks because you're allowed to snack. They're very permissive, they're very flavorful, here they are. There was that. And then there was like, here are the snacks for the kids and the adolescents, right? Like, these are kind of fun, here you go, here's Pirate's Booty, that's what that is. And then any snack in that aisle that was aimed at women were kind of like, here are your snacks because you're on a diet, right? And I was like, wait a second. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Just talk to me the same way that you're talking to, as a woman, talk to me the same way you are talking to everybody else. And I said, okay, who's speaking for the women in the marketplace, in the snack aisle? We've got a brand. Let's do something about it. I've got 2.5 seconds to capture someone's attention. And by the way, the shopper is a woman, right? Like, she's probably in the aisle. She's got her cell phone in her hand. She maybe has a kid in the basket. I maybe even have less than 2.5 seconds to capture her attention. But what I wanted, and what our team wanted, was to show up on that shelf loud and proud. And here's what we wanted to do. We wanted I hope you can read this. We wanted to change the language of selling and the language that we use to communicate to consumers. We wanted to respect the female consumer and celebrate that food can be empowering and not the enemy. And we wanted to be part of changing food culture. And we wanted to make sure that we were contributing to that food culture in a positive way, so that what I wanted to know as a mom and as a person, that the food that I was eating and the things that I was drinking wasn't damaging my body or the environment. And we took that brief to a creative organization, a creative agency, Mono, in Minneapolis, and said, here's what we want to do. We want to show up loud and proud. We want to celebrate the feminine, because we already had Angie's. We have the brand Angie's. We want to celebrate the feminine. You know, if the guys can have their chips, we can have our popcorn, right? We'll eat chips and they can eat our popcorn, but hey, we want to represent equally on shelf. And let's do something that's celebratory, that's empowering, that comes from a place of positivity and not pedantic or not prescriptive or not expect somebody to act or be or the food insinuate that message is there for you. So we took that brief and we decided this is what we're going to do. We're going to show up loud and proud, and we're going to be fun, and we're going to be empowering, and we're going to speak to our audience of women who don't get to be spoken to. And I don't know, I mean, you may not recognize it until you see it, but it is there. There is a vacancy of women showing women's products that don't tell them how to act or how to look. And so what we wanted to do is just celebrate. We did this. And we said, we're going to take this to the next level, and we're going to support and encourage and empower women and their children wherever they are, wherever they touch their lives, with their families, in their schools, in their everyday life, in their jobs, wherever they are. That's the lifestyle part. We want to be with her wherever she is. And we know that we're appealing to women for the sell, but we know she brings it home. And if she's got a he back there, he's eating it too. We know that. So it's not just for women, it's just that we want our brand to celebrate women in a way that they have not been celebrated in food. So how do we do this? Number 2, how do you celebrate women and food in the same moment? Well, you show women and food in the same moment. You show them eating food like it's a normalized behavior, not a moment of conflict or a sexualized behavior. We created a little song. We did it on the cheap, and this would have been in, I think, 2013, 2014. We call it our Boom Chicka Pop song. It's local talent in Minneapolis that created the lyrics, the music. We filmed on the streets in Minneapolis. We had a permit, but we almost got arrested. But here we go. We're going to play it. Marissa, run it up for me, and turn up the music loud. Right? That's what it looks like, being active, eating like it's real, like it's not a big deal, right? Well, okay, so then our job as a food company is to give you real food, right? Like, and for you to choose, to have a choice. So we launched that Boom Chicka Pop in the bright yellow bag in May of 2012. It's our sea salt popcorn. Before then, we were simply Angie's Kettle Corn. And we launched that yellow bag in that brand with the help of Mono, who helped design and create the name. And within 4 months, that bag became our #1 selling SKU after 9 years of business. And it put us on our heels. We were like, whoa, what just happened here? People got it. Like, people understood intuitively. Like, they maybe didn't understand what was behind it, but we got people to stop in front of that bag and go, what is that? I'm interested in it. I like it. What is it? I like what it looks like. And they bought it. And they bought it again because we delivered on the quality of the product. And then we started launching new products in the Boom Chicka Pop brand. And we began to partner with Target, who was willing to do this with us, to transition all of our existing products into new Boom Chicka Pop packaging. Took us a while. From the end of 2012 to 2014, we were Angie's Kettle Corn and Boom Chicka Pop in the marketplace. I don't know if you remember seeing that out there, but we looked a little fractured, and I'm sure people were like, well, what are they doing? And I will tell you, we were doing it slowly because we had a lot of business at that time, and we were not willing to take the risk to just yank something off and put something new. And so we did it very slow, one SKU at a time, and each time that we took the same recipe, put it in the new package, I'm going to say the new close, it turned 2 and 3 times velocity each time. Changing food culture. When you do that and you stick to your guns, you get a lot of media. You get a lot of press, and you get a lot of consumer interest. And we had a lot of print press, we've been on the Today Show probably 3 or 4 times. Nutritionists and our Hy-Vee nutritionists, I'll tell you, they've been very supportive of us all along the way. In Natural and Organic, they've been very supportive. You know, it is something that in the beginning we were sort of on the fringe that has now become mainstream. And I believe it's because consumers were demanding it. Consumers were asking for it. And we listen to consumers like a lot of companies are beginning to listen to consumers in a way that they've never listened to them before. And I would say that's a hallmark of a modern, impactful food company. Okay. We wanted to connect. We wanted not just to listen to our consumers, but to reach out to our consumers, to connect on a much deeper level. And here's an example of a project that just kind of went to nothing, but we used it in a way to connect to our consumers and turned lemons, let's just say lemons and a spend, into lemonade. And here's what we did. I had this, like, I was thinking, oh, we want to vertically integrate. I want our organic products, because we had a small organic line for retailers that were interested in organic popcorn. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to support organic popcorn growers in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. And this was 2012. And let's see what we can learn about it, because there weren't very many, and Hanel's around here had just closed shop, and so there were no popcorn growers. So I said, maybe we need to do a little research. So we funded some research at the University of Minnesota out in Lamberton, where their organic land is. And we studied 4 varieties of popcorn, and this was 2012. So in 2012, I don't know if you all remember, but there was a significant drought, and our yield was so low that no farmer wanted to take us on. Like, our research was so bad that there was no chance that any farmer would take a risk on organic popcorn. And the farm bill wasn't signed yet, so they weren't even able to get crop insurance on organic popcorn at that point. And so we just said, oh, well, that's not going to work. But what our marketing team did is they said, hey, let's take this and let's go grow popcorn. Let's give the seeds to consumers so that they can grow their own popcorn, because this helped us achieve that third goal is changing food culture. And part of that is getting closer to your food, understanding your food, knowing where it comes from, getting your hands sort of in the dirt. And we said, oh, that would be so fun. Let's grow some popcorn. So we created a Grow Some Boom program. We created a tutorial online that taught people how to grow popcorn, how to plant, how to maintain, how to harvest. We gave away 6 million seeds that first summer to schools and families and Girl Scout troops that all wanted to understand how to grow popcorn, and we talked the Girl Scouts into creating a special badge that said Grow Some Boom for the Girl Scouts that grew that as a science project. And here on our video is a little summary of that program. Marissa, you can run. We wanted to get even closer to our consumers. We wanted to celebrate them. We just grew some real food. We wanted to highlight and celebrate real people's lives, real women's lives. And we thought, like, this was last year, we thought we have money right now to do some advertising, and we can put it in the budget, but what kind of advertising do we want to do? For us, it wasn't just about trying to sell the product or expose the consumer to our brand. For us, it was about trying to message like what we want to do, and that is to celebrate real women's lives. So we created the Crush It campaign. Real women, real people who are crushing things every day, like crushing doubt and crushing a meeting. And we created the Crush It campaign. And what we decided to do in our advertising, and we didn't have a script, we didn't have anything, but we were in LA, we had a production crew, we did a casting call, and we just said, tell us how you crush it in your life every single day. We had 350 women show up. And some of the women said, you know, I don't really have a talent, I'm not an actor, but this is how I crush it in my life every day. I stand in front of the mirror and give myself affirmations. And that was Tasmina, and her affirmations became the script for our 60-second commercial. And our production crew became so enamored and so moved by these women's stories that they gave us like free work because they wanted to highlight these women's lives. And so what we'll have, what we call our anthem is our 60-second anthem. If you want to see it again, it's on our website. But this is 17 vignettes of real women's lives that we're celebrating and how they crush it every day.
I'm a genius, I am smart, I am creative, I am talented, I am passionate, I am powerful. Everybody knows how powerful you are. You're gonna make it. You are making it. I'm caring, I'm cool, I'm so cool, I'm cool. I am comfortable in my skin. I am beautiful, I am free, I am okay. I am spiritual, I am vulnerable, I am kind, I am succeeding right now. I am receiving new tools every day that help me become a better person every single day. I am great, I am funny, I am doing it.
your day. Crush it. Angie's Boom Chicka Pop with whole grain. Boom!
Boom. Thank you so much for having me. This company started in a garage by a school teacher and a nurse. Believe it or not. It is now a brand that when I travel on the airplane and people see that I'm wearing my shirt, they stop me and they go, "Do you work for that company?" Because I love that popcorn. It is like hearing your song getting played on the radio when someone knows your product and they love it. And I feel like we've been able to do so much more than just the product. With popcorn, I mean, if you think that you can't make a difference in the world because you don't know, we didn't imagine that we would be celebrating real women's lives just because we started a popcorn company in our garage. We didn't understand that we would be running a company for 17 years. We just tried to do the best that we could every step of the way, keep an open mind, learn as much as we could, make our people successful along with us, and to do something impactful in the world. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I'll go on the outside. Okay. Wasn't she wonderful? She's awesome. Yeah. Woo! So Dan and Angie were here 5 years ago and co-presented, and it was fun seeing the packaging that you had 5 years ago and seeing how far the company has come in 5 years.
Incredible, right?
It's incredible. It's astounding.
It's a testament to building the team, you know, being able to bring expertise in and building the team and helping us be open and grow. I mean, this is what happens when you're open.
And you talked about that this morning when you were and you had 3 of your team members here with you this morning, 3 women, some of the new vice presidents in marketing and human resource and
Research and development.
And they were talking about how you have really invited them in a holistic way. They talked about their families and they talked about their interests and about choosing to work for your company because it matched their values. That has to be pretty phenomenal.
It is. I mean, I think when Dan and I dreamed about having a company, you know, we just wanted to create a work environment that, you know, we needed people, right? Like, we needed to be, and I use this word, we needed to be relevant in their lives. We needed them to give us their best because we were so few people. And by making a work environment that is built around community and mutual respect and a welcoming environment, it was very important for us to say to people, bring your whole self to work. You know, bring who you are to work. You're welcome. Who you are is welcome. And then here are the parameters about what we need to get done and our expectations. But diversity of opinion and background, and that was all a part of what we wanted to see happen, and we think it made our company stronger.
I think, and that full authentic self. So you mentioned you and Dan started in almost service careers.
Yeah.
Nurse, teacher.
Right.
So as someone who started your professional career as a nurse, what have you found most surprising about being an entrepreneur, an executive, and a boss?
Surprising?
Most surprising.
It moves a lot faster than healthcare. I mean, it moves fast, and I will say, you know, when you're in healthcare, things are pretty regimented. You know, there are very clear like protocols and regimen, and not, there are ethics and rules. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying like the speed at which you go to market and you got to get something done, and it's a different pace, I would say. in business. And, I think, I don't want to speak for Dan, and maybe you wanted to, but for teaching, he was a lot more improvisational, and I think that played a role in our ability to adapt and pivot and move very quickly. And that was a little different, and we were that balance to try to kind of get that pace of the business, in order and keeping us moving forward.
And you moved really fast.
I can't believe it's been almost 18 years. That doesn't feel fast, but it was fast.
Yeah.
It was fast.
Now, one of the things we talked about a few months ago was that you mentioned about having a company being business actually allowed you to make a big impact, to make a difference. And one of the things that we've recently noticed, and when I say we, I mean business schools across the United States, is that there's a decline of women wanting to major in business. And one of the reasons that we've heard is because women want to make a difference, and they're not sure they can make a difference through business. What would you say to that?
Well, I'm going to say business has every possibility of making a positive impact as it does in making a negative impact. It's up to the leadership of each business to create a positive impact in the world. And I'm going to say that my children's generation that's going to be an expectation. I think when they go to work, that is exactly what they expect. They expect to work for an organization that creates impact in the world that is congruent with their values. And I think if businesses don't get on board with that, they're going to be stagnated and they're not going to have a workforce.
I think that we hear that from the students, that those are the kind of companies that they want to work for. So you're saying if companies don't make that change,
they're going to be scrambling. The quality of their workforce is not going to be what they want. I guess for Dan and I, there was no other way for us to build a business, right? Like that's we didn't know that we were creating a business that was appealing to millennials. We didn't. This is just what we did. This is what mattered to us, and maybe that means that we were born too early, and we really are millennials at heart. And I act like one sometimes. Sorry, I don't mean to generalize about that, but there is something very, very interesting about the youth of our country, is that there are things that matter deeply that I think, and their voices are going to get heard no matter what that is, and I applaud them for that. I cheer that, like, if they're going to change business systems, they're going to change healthcare systems, they're going to change government, they're going to change a lot of things, and if those of us that are parents to that, if we don't learn very quickly what we need to do, it's going to be hard for businesses, I think, to make it in a way that they get the kind of talent they want.
There was a Twin Cities Business Magazine recently, actually December of 2017, titled Making Money on Munchies, that actually Boom Chicka Pop was featured in it. I found it really interesting, especially as we're really, as a university, really embracing food and ag, that they were saying Minnesota is a great company, or is a great state to launch food companies. One of the things it mentioned that I hadn't really ever thought about before is that Minnesota is #1 in sugar beets, processed sweet corn, green peas, #2 in wild rice, #3 in dry beans and oats, #5 in rye, #1 in turkeys, #2 in pork, number 6 in cheese and honey, and it goes on.
Where are we in popcorn?
And corn.
Wait, we don't show up in popcorn. No, we're not growing
it's not popcorn, but
no, we're not.
Corn was #4.
Yeah.
But it was just saying this is a great state if you want to be in food. It's a great state to be in.
Well, here's the thing: when you're a little food company, you don't know, like, bubbling up from the bottom. You need like competency. You need talent. You need people. And Minnesota has agriculture. They have a huge food organizations and research organizations around food that the talent is here. The talent.
General Mills,
and Cargill and ConAgra used to be here. A lot of food and 3M for logistics. I mean, Medtronic. One of our quality persons was from Medtronic, I think. And there are a lot of large, very successful companies that have a long-standing history in the region where we were able to attract talent. I mean, amazing talent, and people that have been in these organizations that said, you know what, I like this. This is very secure and very stable, but I'm interested in what's going on in small and mid-sized companies, and I'm going to take a risk and jump over here. And that's how we have been able to attract talent.
So kind of as you've evolved as a company, recently in October, you sold Boom Chicka Pop for $250 million to ConAgra. And so that was something that this article was talking about, because it said that that this journey for you and Dan had been remarkable. What, in your opinion, what was has been most remarkable about the Boom Chicka Pop journey? Or it could be a couple of things, too.
Yeah. Well, okay, the first thing that I thought about is my husband and I built this company over 16 years, and we're still married. Right? Right? It's hard, right? Like, try being married and for, how, 23 years? 24? I don't know. I never remember our anniversary. We're somewhere in there, right? He remembers better than I do. Yeah, no. He gets such a break because I am not an anniversary birthday person. But it takes a lot of intentionality to manage relationships. And I think the remarkable thing, I think Dan and my skill, and I'm going to say, I think nursing taught me, the entire profession of nursing, and I'm going to circle back to answer your question, the entire profession of nursing is you're taught to listen to your patients, right? Like, listen. And then do something that affects them positively. I think that piece for me, and I did that very well for 28 years, layered over top of building this popcorn company and together. And, I think that translated into the business environment to listen to the consumer, react, and do something positive. And Dan brought his skill set to this. And they're separate skill sets. There was a time everybody had two bosses, both Dan and I, sort of, and that's really hard for for an employee base. And so Dan and I really had to figure out how to come out in a unified way, so that we didn't create chaos in the business. And then, the other remarkable thing I think about this is managing that relationship also worked out through managing our relationships with employees. And then, and I talked about this earlier, when we entered into a relationship with private equity, I saw that as getting married, two businesses getting married. You still have to manage, it's like you're contractually bound and you're unified in your goal, right? Like, we're going to build this business and we're going to grow it, and we want to be successful, and we're going to be positive. And private equity sometimes gets a bad rap, and some of them aren't so great. But and at the end of the day, you have to choose your partners well, and including your business partners. You have to trust them, you have to believe in them, you have to expect the best out of them, and you have to manage that communication. And I would say that the fact that we were able to manage individual communication to build to a unified goal, manage business-to-business communication in partnership, and then with our customers and our consumers, and then again with another private equity, and now with ConAgra. I think that's probably the thing I think is maybe most remarkable.
Awesome. One of the other things that's really awesome is that you've taken really your work and really a focus now on women and empowering women, positivity. Who were some of those really positive female role models when you were growing up? Or since as you've continued to live, who have been some of those really positive female role models?
I'm just going to say, I grew up in a sort of a tight-knit community, and in my upbringing, I grew up on a farm, small Mennonite farm in northern Indiana. I didn't have, women in my life that were out there charging on to their career. They were running the house, right? Like, it was very traditional. But, so I wouldn't say I had any sort of career-minded women early in my life, but what I had was, I think, a family that I knew I was loved, that taught me I could do things, that when I got sort of crazy and rebellious, they didn't kick me out of the house, that sort of thing. But so that sort of unconditional, like, hey, you're okay, we love you, we accept you, that I think is an important message that I learned from the women in my life. And then I think when and I said at one point in time, my grandma said, what was the best advice I ever got? Well, it's probably from my grandma that said, be a good person. And I think that's important. No matter what you do, you bring goodwill and be a good person. And then I think when I went into nursing was 1983. I didn't work with a single male nurse in the ICU at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. Like, we had a troupe of women nurses, and these were kick-ass women. Like, they took no shit from anybody, and they took care of their patients, and they advocated, and they, they would speak truth to power, right there, if something wasn't happening, and they got things done because life and death depended on it. And I would say, those women were probably my role models in terms of very early on in my youth to kind of show me how to advocate, how to be strong, how to speak up and begin to find your voice.
Well, there's this new book. So this is a brand new children's book. It's being published by one of our local publishers, Abdo Publishing, which is so cool. We have a very strong publishing industry here in southern Minnesota. But it's here, Boom Chicka Pop Boss, and you're a female foodie, one of 5 females featured in this series. So now you're becoming a role model for an awful lot of young people as they look to your story to be inspiring. So that's very cool. So congratulations on your new book.
Thanks. I didn't write it. I'm just the subject. Rebecca Felix is the author. It's 2nd through 6th grade reading level, and they did a Food Dudes series where they did a bunch of like KFC, what's his name? Colonel Sanders and McDonald's, all those guys. And they were like, hold on, we haven't done any women. We can't just send. And so they did a female foodie version. So they did Angie Bastian, Angie's Boom Chicka Pop. They've done, it's Ruth Crisp and Leanne Chin. Marie Callender is another one. So it is for libraries and education and school. And really, it's such an honor to have children read your story and somehow be inspired. And this should be actually a normal thing for little girls. Because I was just in Dallas last week. There was a Texas Librarians Association where Abdo was selling their books, and I said, I'll come down, I'll sign books, and we'll hand out popcorn. And there were probably, 500, 600 Texas librarians, and so many times they came up to me and said, there's not very many books in the library about women in business or women's entrepreneurs, and they were thanking Abdo for publishing books about women's stories. And I think, cheers to Abdo Publishing for starting this. Yeah.
Awesome. And just to let you know, at the reception, Angie has some books that she'll be signing, so come get your copy.
Okay.
So I'm going to end by just asking you a few things about living out loud.
Okay.
So what's your favorite snack besides Boom Chicka Pop?
Oh gosh, I love ice cream.
Do you?
I do.
Any particular flavor?
I like Talenti's salted caramel. One time, okay, does anybody eat Talenti's? You know, they have that plastic thing with the tight, you know, the thing on top. There was one batch, I think, that they screwed it on so tight. I couldn't get the top off. Dan couldn't get the top off. I took a knife and cut the top to dig into that ice cream or gelato. Yeah, that's how desperate I was. Yeah.
What musical artist do you turn up loud if you need to rock out to music?
I love Imagine Dragons. I love their power. I love that voice.
I heard some students say, "Oh, all right, cool factor for sure." What are you now doing differently to live out loud?
Gosh, what am I doing? Well, let me just tell you, when you're building a business, I think you don't really take time to take care of yourself very well, because everything else comes first, I think, and I was okay with that during the business build. And so now I think I started playing tennis, cardio tennis. I'm taking some lessons. I started spinning, which I love. I love to spin. I love to put that music in my ear and just go. And I don't do it enough, but I love starting to do that sort of stuff. Living out loud by moving.
By moving. And next week you shared that you'll be coming together with other women. You're going to be...
Oh, yeah. I'll be in New York with Gloria Steinem. She's talking about women using their power, influence, and wealth to, you know, make an impact in the world. And she and a panel of folks will be talking about how women can, can come together and sort of create, opportunity for other women and support other women. And I got an invitation to come, and it'll be probably maybe 20, 30 of us women there to sit down and talk about, what we can do.
Well, I think I speak for many women when I say I'm so grateful to you for elevating women as entrepreneurs and as business people and just generally making a difference in the world. Thank you so much for making time to come here and be with us, given I know you have a lot on your plate. But isn't she amazing? She's amazing. You're amazing. So, we want to open it up to the audience for you guys to ask Angie questions. I believe there are some mics that are circulating, and we're going to throw it out there too. Anyone who asks a question gets a big bag of popcorn. So we have some popcorn to give out. So we have a question over here on the side. So get your questions ready. And we have the reception right after this, and you'll have a chance to talk with Angie, but we'll also have lots of popcorn and other refreshments there. So we got a question?
Go ahead, you're ready. Let's start.
So I remember in 2016, you with your seeds, the summer of 2016, you started making some beer.
Yeah.
I scoured the entire Mankato for that, and I wasn't able to get my hands on any. Are you gonna start doing that again, and maybe even diversify even more with your products outside of just popped corn?
Yeah, well, here, let me tell you, that was a partnership with Mankato Brewery, and Tim Toopy is the founder and owner, or majority owner of the Mankato Brewery, and Tim called me up one day and he goes, hey, we want to do a seasonal beer, we want to make it with popcorn, nobody's ever done it before, would you want to do it with us? And I was interested. It took a lot to get our executive team and everybody on board because we are not a beer company, right? But I said, we want to do this to support a local business, we have national recognition. Our brand has national recognition, and if we can do this with a local business, we'll be able to get them noticed and get them some, maybe some public relations, and it would be a fun project. It was sort of a loony project, but let's go, let's do it. And what we did, it was actually popped popcorn, air popped popcorn that they used instead of corn or barley or whatever as the grain. And I said, Tim, if we're going to do this, because he said we really craft beer doesn't really appeal to very many women, and they want to appeal to more women, and we think maybe you can help us do that. And I said, okay, if you're going to do that, then I get to do the taste profile. Like, I get to say what it needs to taste like, because I'll tell you why they don't like it. And so they let me kind of weigh in on the taste profile, and then they launched it as a seasonal product, and it sold out. And I said, you got to let us do the graphics, because we know what it looks like. We know what we need to do on shelf to get you attention. We'll co-brand it, but we're the bigger brand, so you gotta ride our shoulders right here. So that's when it looked like our product, but Mankato Brewery had the band on it, and it was their product. We didn't own it, but it got them lots of attention. They got distributors in New Orleans calling them, like, hey, can we get your popcorn beer? They got press out of Men's Health magazine, and the first batch that they made, because they do batch processing, sold out in the first 3 days. And so that's why you couldn't get it. And so they called us again and just said, because it really tasted good too. It was a Belgian pale ale, or I didn't say that right. It was a Belgian beer, and it was just really, they wanted it for summer, to be sort of refreshing and light, and it was a really good beer. So they made a second batch, and that one sold out in a week. So that's why you didn't get it. And they were actually they were selling it for like $4 a can. So that's kind of a lot to spring for him. But he keeps calling me to see if we can do it again. But our company is just sort of like, hey, we're not a beer company. Hey, probably not. But he may do it again. Ask Tim Tupi. He may do it. Get down to Mankato Brewery, and he might be able to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. He gets a popcorn.
Right here.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
So how was it
Okay.
So how was it balancing the family, like your family, while trying to grow your company? Because I know, raising a family is hard, let alone starting a business at the same time.
Yeah, it is hard. And I think I said this earlier this morning. Dan and I kind of had the misconception that if you start your own business, you have control of your time. Well, the opposite is true. You don't have, especially if you're the bottom line, the buck stops here. You just do not have control of your time if you want your business to succeed and move forward. I think a lot of the things that we did during that time, our children were, 3 and 5 when we started, because our family was so important to us. Our business allowed us some flexibility to be able to do the things to be present in our children's life. And Dan coached baseball and helped with basketball. I was volunteering at school with Annika. I mean, we were present at our children's games. We weren't a family that always had dinner together every night. Our kids now think that that's really special, because we ate out a lot. Like, they were not interested in eating out now, but it has triggered our daughter to be interested in cooking and culinary things, which, that's kind of making lemonade out of lemons, right? But I think what was so important for us was that we spent time with our children every moment that we had available to us, and we were reading books every night before we went to bed, and we'd fall asleep in their bed, and then get up and do payroll, and we were at their events, and we were at, we had 3 sport athletes, both of them, and it wasn't easy. And I would say that what took a hit was our personal, probably our personal health and well-being at the time. But you just get in that mode of, I'm gonna do it, and you do it, and I guess I would say, Dan and I would say, we probably came, and everybody else, the business and the kid and the family, came first, and I think that's how we did it. Dan, do you have any other thoughts about that? Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're just now recovering. Let me just say that. And they're both off jobs in college, right? We've got a senior. She's going to graduate from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and then she's going to culinary school in Italy in the fall, and she's interested in public health. So we'll see how all that fits together. And then we have a son that's a sophomore at Santa Clara University in Northern California studying finance. So, launched. And that makes, I have to tell you, somebody asked our daughter Annika, maybe when she was 16, she just said something, they asked her something like, "Hi, what do you think about your parents starting this whole big business and everything?" And she said, to be honest with you, I don't know how they did it or when they did it, Like, it was not part, it was, but it was her normal life, and it was part of her world. And I think the thing that most parents worry about is that they somehow damage their children, but, that their business or their career damages their children in some way. And, I think we tried to do everything we could to mitigate that. Great question. Yes. Right back there. Oh, right here. Okay.
For like distribution wise, how did you get into, so like you talked about like Costco and all that, but I work for Starbucks specifically, and I know we sell Angie's Boom Chicka Pop.
Yeah,
I think it's crazy. I didn't realize it was something from here originally.
Yeah.
And then when I was traveling, I noticed it's at Starbucks is all over. So
Yeah.
how did you go from being in like grocery stores and that to selling to like a company as big as Starbucks? Was that something that you specifically did? Did they seek you out? Or did you have like a kind of another company you worked for or with, or a team that figured that out?
Yeah. So Starbucks specifically, here's what I'm going to say. If you create a brand that is interesting, you create interesting products, a brand with cachet or has some energy and interest behind it, sometimes companies call you. And this is one of those examples. Starbucks called us last year. And wanted to meet with, and we have a specific salesperson, Grant Rice, who services our food service department, or our food service channel. And Grant and I and our VP of sales went out to meet with Starbucks in Seattle, and they were interested in the product. They have their own private label. We have a branded product, and a lot of places have branded products, and they have private label products. So, the balance is getting your branded product in and saying no to doing their private label, because you really want to focus on your branded product. So, they understood we didn't want to do private label, and they were fine with that, but they wanted the brand. And then, so they buy in increments for their quarterly highlights. So far, we've had success, and every quarter they've picked another product that they wanted to carry. So the first product was the chocolatey peanut butter. The next one for holiday season was the hot cocoa marshmallow, and now chili lime is in there. So, but we were lucky that way. Not every organization calls us. You have to go and beat their door down sometimes and try to get an appointment. And we have probably right now we have probably about 20 sales staff that's their job. They work remotely all over the country. Their job is to get out there and find retailers, and we're in most retailers now, but to find organizations that are interested and willing to carry our product. Yeah.
You mentioned that when you started the business that you wanted your kids to be involved. So how much involvement did your kids have as they were growing up? And now that they're in school, are they still involved, or are they planning on coming back when they're done with school?
Yeah, well, they were 3 and 5 at the time, so that involvement lasted for about 2 hours. But they did help. I mean, they would come along sometimes, and when they were little, and hand out samples with us or do demos. But but, you know, we just really wanted them to be kids and have a life, you know, and not, you know, and just, and you know, not have to think about, you know, as they began to grow and have their own life. And I will say that there's this conversation, and I've told this story probably a lot of times, and so I apologize to all of you who've heard it before, but there was a time at the dinner table one night, our son, Trip, was, I don't know, maybe he was 7 or 8, or I don't know, I don't even remember how old he was. He said, "Why are you doing this kettle corn thing anyway?" And I just said to him, "Well, because maybe someday when you grow up, you might be able to run a popcorn company." And he said to me, and these are his exact words, "No can do, I'm going pro." He loved baseball at the time. You know, his dream was to be a pro baseball player at the time, right? You know, but it kind of took me back, and I just said, you know what? Our dreams are not our children's dreams, you know? But our job is to create for them the belief that they can dream that big. If he really wants to be a pro baseball player, you can do it. If mom and dad did this, you can do that, right? Like if you work hard enough, you can do it. And so for us, it was really just about sort of trying to create that foundation, that the barriers that are there are the ones that you create for yourself. And so there were times where they would work for us. I think Annika and her good friend Aaliyah, which I see Aaliyah's mom back over there, they did data entry one summer, and they would do it together for a couple of summers. And then and Trip worked in the kettle corn, like selling at Moondog's baseball games, which he hated. But he did it, you know, he worked there for one summer. And, you know, we just kind of bring him along sometimes for events. I took Annika to Expo West, you know, where you saw those, when we launched Boom Chicka Pop, and she worked alongside of me on the booth. She was 16. She was 16, and the minimum age on the floor is 18, because they often sell alcohol and stuff out there. And I don't know why it's 18, because they're selling alcohol, and it's in California, but it's 18. But I snuck her onto the floor, and nobody cares. You know, this is what you do, you know, if you need extra help. And she worked out there, and then we went to Disneyland together, you know. So work and family time always sort of kind of came together for us. And I wouldn't say they had any distinct internships, but Trip did some job shadowing a couple of summers ago, and I think their participation with our business is, I think they sort of learned a lot about business by watching us, and you know, we didn't make them sweep floors or anything like that. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. Yeah, we got two back here. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, both those here are going for a business degree.
Uh-huh.
Your husband don't have any background in business. How easy or hard was it to learn all that on your own?
It's hard, right? And I would say the key was we knew what we didn't know, and we brought on people to help us. As soon as we could afford somebody that we wanted and knew, and what we wanted was the best. Like, that's what we aimed for, is the best we could afford. We would bring on talent. And I would say, you know, it's not that business is easy to do, but, you know, there is room to learn along the way. And you know, because we started in sort of such a smallish way, it gave us some time to learn along the way. I remember Dan said one day, he said, there's a professor from SCC coming over, he's going to teach you how to use QuickBooks, and then you're going to do the books. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do the books. And so I had a 3-hour course in QuickBooks, and I was the financial officer for the first 4 or 5 years, right? Like, that's what we did. And I didn't do it well, but that's all we had. And you know, you elbow your way through until you learn, and then you open yourself up to consultants to come in to teach you. You bring in, if you can't afford to hire, you bring a consultant in. You just grab as much and you open and you learn and you listen as much as you can, and you grow. You know, it does help to be open. In healthcare, I ran some business systems. So I ran budget budgets before, and I'm not going to say I ran this budget very well because nobody had time really to run budgets, but it did have concept, the balance sheet and some things like that until we had our brother-in-law, who was the CFO, come in and, and the CPA and be our CFO. So, it was like bringing in talent to help us grow. And I feel like, and I'm pretty sure Dan maybe feels like this too, we still don't know everything, but we probably earned our MBA. Experientially. Yeah.
One last question, and then we can go to the reception, and there can be more time for questions there too. So was there one more?
Yeah.
Have you taken a brand internationally already, or are you planning to?
Yes, well, we sell in Canada through Costco and Loblaws and Sobeys and quite a few outlets. We were part of the Target rollout in Canada and then Demise, so that was our first experience. And then Costco took us to South Korea. So we have product in South Korea through Costco and in Japan. We just rolled out in Japan this year. I think our plan is to be in Taiwan soon. We're in Mexico with Sam's, I think, or with Costco right now. I can't remember. And then, surprise, we're in the Caribbean. And we didn't even know we were there until I had friends taking pictures of our product on the shelves in some of the resorts. And that happens because we're in distribution warehouses and, grocery stores and chains and, all over in North America pull from those, like UNFI and KeHE. And so we're there. And then we have one very interesting distributor that goes to Peru, and he has this very clear transportation mode that he can get the product. We have a shelf life of 6 months right now for the popcorn, and so going beyond, you have to have a very efficient logistics system to get your product on shelf in time, and he has that. So we're in Peru as well. We'll see. We always kind of felt like we had a lot of domestic distribution we needed to fill in before we went too far internationally.
Awesome. I think we should have Dan. I think you should come up here, Dan. So we can thank Dan for all this. Again, I want to thank Angie for being our executive in residence. Come on up, Dan. Dick Schmitz for your continued support on this lecture. And I think we should go have some popcorn and
let's have popcorn.
Let's have some popcorn together. Thank you again, Angie.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. It was really fun. Thank you, Angie. Thank you.